Hey everybody, Jeff Johnson from the Gazette, KJ Pilcher, and Nathan Ford. You all know what he looks like now. He's been well. Actually, you already know what he looks like. He's been doing all this stuff on Friday night for us. That's been great. So,
Yeah,
Nathan,
right.
yeah, Nathan's stepping in for this edition of the Prep Huddle, Prep Football Podcast. Jeff Linder's got other duties going on, so. Nathan, welcome aboard, man. Don't show KJ and I up, please, too much. So
Next man up, right?
Yeah,
that's
right.
right.
Next
That's
man in.
I've heard that somewhere before. I'm not sure, but boys, it's a round of 16. Playoff wise, we've got every class that will be in postseason competition Friday night, and we're taping this on Thursday. We had one round of playoffs, and those count, right? Those are actual playoff games last week. Is that
Yeah.
what everybody decided? So in the smaller classes, we had first round games last week, the round of 32, and now we're down to the round of 16. So we will why don't we just run right through it, guys, and we'll get your analysis on things. Let's start with class 5A, where we have the setting is 4 pods with each pod having, I guess, your number one team in the pod, and then 3 others. And actually, I think this was set up almost perfectly by RPI, with maybe 1 or 2 tweaks for geography going into this thing. So the RPI was used heavily when creating these postseason pairings. Pod 1 looks like we've got Johnston 4 and 5 at Southeast Polk 8-1. Southeast Polk was your top RPI team in 5A, according to the IHSAA, and then Linn-Mar 7 and 2 at West Des Moines, Dowling 6 and 3. Tough go here for Linn-Mar. Jackson Smolik's back at quarterback for Dowling, and the Maroons will be a tough out here. Southeast Polk's a tough out. What do you think about Pod 1, guys?
Well, I think this really started to kind of form a couple weeks ago, where Dowling just seemed to kind of hit a different gear, different level as the regular season came to an end, and you kind of hear that train rolling down the tracks. And what was it, opening week when Southeast Polk and Dowling had the game decided, like on a Hail Mary pass, maybe. So is it a collision course between these two for a spot in the dome? I'm gonna guess yes. No disrespect to Linn-Mar, but Dowling's playing really, really well, and Linn-Mar unfortunately has to head over there. But don't count the Lions out. I mean, I think with their defense, they've done a good job of being able to force turnovers, especially interceptions. Maybe there's a little bit of a rust factor. Dowling's QB hasn't had a full season. Maybe they're able to force a couple turnovers and run the ball well with Carter Henderson. I believe McKay Jelinek is actually playing a lot stronger. So the Lions have a chance, but boy, it's hard not to think we're going to see Southeast Polk and Dowling for a spot in the dome.
Nathan, actually, that game will not be at Dowling's home field, which is actually at West Des Moines Valley, because Valley also has a home playoff game. So they will play the Linn-Mar and West Des Moines Dowling game at Des Moines East, which is Williams Field, I believe is the name of Williams Stadium. So you kind of see the same thing, this kind of a collision course for Southeast Polk and Dowling again.
Yeah, I mean, Linn-Mar got a tough draw. I think they can, like KJ said, I think they can make it a game for sure. I mean, I don't think Dowling is quite as explosive as maybe they've been in the past. I mean, I think they scored 31 against Valley, but in some of their big games, they've been low scoring. But with Smolik back, they're just a different team. And we got some a few comments from people when our rankings came out that had Dowling up to number 5. Like, how can you have a 3-loss team in the top 5? But context matters a lot there. And with them at full strength, they've beaten Valley. They've been a play away from beating Southeast Polk. And I feel like that quarterfinal game, if it happens, is going to be one of the most anticipated quarterfinal games in the last few years. I mean, the week 1 game was one of the most hyped games of the regular season because we had them. I think Southeast Polk was number 1 and Dowling was number 3 at the time. So Southeast Polk has kind of been, Kennedy's obviously climbed up to the number 1 spot, but Southeast Polk has kind of loomed as the 5A favorite probably for a lot of the season if you had to pick a champion. But there's a very real chance that they don't get to the Dome just because of that draw that they've got.
Let's move on to Pod 2, where Cedar Rapids Kennedy is your top team there. The Cougars 9-0 host Dubuque Senior 5-4, and the other part or the other game in Pod 2 is Urbandale 7-2 at Iowa City High 8-1. Kennedy was your number 2 team in the 5A RPI. City High, despite just that one loss to Pleasant Valley and pretty much destroying every other team, with the exception of Dowling, which was a last-second victory. City High got the number 7 RPI guys, and thus has a tough first-round game against Urbandale.
Yeah, Urbandale was one of those teams that kind of leading up to week 9 that they were right on that cusp, that 5-6 team in our rankings, and they had a little bit of a disappointing setback last week that might have dropped them a little bit. They were a team that I thought that could make some noise here in the postseason. But this is a pretty tough this is a pretty tough pod. This is not an easy route for Kennedy. You mentioned how well City High has played. The only loss there to PV. That was a bit of a head scratcher when that came around. But Dubuque Senior has played Kennedy tough, and that's not going to be an easy first round matchup for the Cougars. Obviously, I think Kennedy is a team that not only could make the Dome, but be in the finals and contend for a title. I think they're a lot more balanced and diverse Kennedy team than we've seen in the past, and but they're going to have their hands full just to get to Cedar Falls with Dubuque Senior, and then the winner between Urbandale and City High, and that Urbandale City High could be one of the most competitive games here in this first round for 5A.
Guys, I look at that it's been a great turnaround, as we all know, at City High under first year coach Mitch Moore. What's maybe been most amazing to me is that they rotate 2 sophomore quarterbacks in Tran and Larson, and yet they've been able to almost they've been great on offense, right? And both those kids, they rotate, and their numbers are almost identical, and they're sophomores. So to me, I guess that's pretty impressive, right?
Now I want to see if they can keep it up for 3 years.
Yeah,
keep rotating them.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's been a great story at City High, and both City High and Kennedy, like KJ said, are gonna have really tough first round games. But I would love to see that quarterfinal game, because both those teams we've been kind of talking about most of the year really haven't played a lot of the teams in this area. So it's been hard to compare like a Kennedy versus Prairie or City High. So that's a matchup that I think we would have loved to see in the regular season. So I'm just really hoping we get it here in the playoffs.
You know what?
I'm sorry, KJ.
I was just gonna say, what the prospects of Kennedy City High kind of remind me of a little bit, and JJ, you might recall about about a decade ago, when City High and Xavier battled. It seemed like every year there were, I think City High won a state title, and then Xavier went to the finals a couple of years in a row there. I think this possible Kennedy City High matchup might resemble some of those battles between City High and Xavier. So it's a pretty attractive quarterfinal matchup.
Pods 3 and 4, we've only got one team from our area, and that's in pod 4. But we'll run through pod 3. It's West Des Moines Valley is your top team there at 7-2, and the Tigers will play Ankeny Centennial in the first round. Centennial gets in at 4-5. Cedar Falls 6-3 at Pleasant Valley, 7-2. That's the other game. Then in pod 4, Cedar Rapids Prairie is your top team. RPI wise, gets Bettendorf at 5-4 in the first round, a rematch from the regular season. Then Waukee Northwest 5-4 at Ankeny 7-2. Any thoughts on 3 and 4? I really think Prairie's got a chance to make this deep playoff run, guys. What do you think?
Well, both KJ and I were at Prairie's game against Southeast Polk a few weeks ago, and after watching the first quarter and a half, I was thinking, all right, well, Prairie's a good team, but maybe not on the level of some of the elites in 5A. And then I was about to leave at halftime and they scored, and I was like, I'll just stick around for a little while longer, see if Southeast Polk puts it away in the third quarter. And Prairie, probably came away with that from that game thinking they should have won. And that's just been from then on, you can tell that this Prairie team at full strength is right among the 5A contenders. And it would be an awesome story for them to get to the Dome. They've definitely got a chance. Waukee Northwest and Ankeny, I think, would both be tough quarterfinal games. But with the way Prairie played against Southeast Polk and just the competitive nature of 5A this year, this of all the years is just an opening for so many of these teams to make a run.
Just piggyback on what you said about that game with Prairie. I remember Prairie Southeast Polk. I remember Mark Bliss mentioned, talking to the Southeast Polk coaches after the game and said, I hope we meet up with you guys again. This is a great game. And I think one of the reasons behind that was, Prairie was maybe inches, or the length of Wampaugh's hand, from winning that game. And there are a lot of mistakes that they made. That's the other thing too, is that, there's a block punt that led to a touchdown early. There was some communication and time management issues that led to that final field goal attempt. And, there are times where Prairie proved that they could just move the ball on Southeast Polk. And, I think they can do that against just about anybody. And, Ankeny, they had an early season loss to Centennial, and then they, a 3-point loss to Valley. So those are only losses, but, really outside of that, you've got the win over Southeast Polk, and I think the rest of their schedule with, Des Moines North and Waukee's down this year, I think, even if they match up, or even if they face one of those two teams, I think they have a good chance to win. And, when you get to the Dome, and a lot of things can happen. So really like the way Prairie's set up right now.
Well, it's an open 5A, and I love that. I don't know what you guys think, but Dowling obviously has been so dominant for so long, and Central Iowa's been so dominant for even longer. But to me, this is just, you can legit pick, maybe a handful of teams here and say, yeah, they've, they can win a state championship. So 5A is going to be really, really interesting. Let's move to Class 4A, where we've got, again, the pod system, the 4 pods, where we've got a top team according to the RPI in each of the pods. We'll run through Pod 1, Decorah 6-3 at North Scott 9-0. Clear Creek Amana 6-3 at Winterset 7-2. Then Pod 2 is Burlington 7-2 at Cedar Rapids Xavier 8-1. Norwalk 6-3 at Webster City 7-2. Pod 3, Cedar Rapids Washington 5-4 at Waverly Shell Rock 8-1. Fort Dodge 7-2 at Fondurant Farrar 8-1. And then finally Pod 4, Carlisle 5-4 at Indianola 8-1. And then Spencer 7-2 at Council Bluffs Lewis Central 7-2. Your top 4 teams according to RPI and 4A are North Scott, Cedar Rapids Xavier, Waverly Shell Rock, and Indianola. Guys, would it, pick a pod and talk about it here, I guess.
Well, I'll go ahead and take the easy one there with Pod 2. With Burlington at Xavier here in the first round. I really think that's a tough matchup for Burlington. That's a run heavy offense, to say the least. And I think you're seeing strength versus strength there, where you talk about Burlington's run game against Xavier's run defense. I think that benefits Xavier quite a bit. The other one with Norwalk and Webster City, the interesting thing is, if Webster City comes out on top of that one, Webster City at Xavier quarterfinal, that seems like a really odd pairing and an odd trip, there. But Webster City's 7-2. They score 34.2 points a game, only give up about 15. Norwalk, their defense, they're a little more offensive heavy. So kind of looking at Xavier and Webster City moving on and having that quarterfinal, and could be a real exciting quarterfinal there, possibly between Webster City at Xavier.
Nathan, is there one pod that kind of sticks out to you here of the 4?
I think Pod 3 is just kind of fun to think about. I mean, with Waverly Shell Rock and Bondurant Farrar, the top 2 seeds, those are football programs that you haven't necessarily thought of as being really strong football programs, but they both had great seasons, and we kind of expected that coming in. Both teams brought a lot of talent back and have been really good the whole season. And then they both play teams that have been bigger schools, like a class above them or 2 classes above them in the past. In the first round, Cedar Rapids, Washington, and Fort Dodge. So it's kind of weird to think about and almost hard to predict what's going to happen in those games. But if you got like a Waverly Shell Rock Bondurant quarterfinal game, then one of those schools is going to be going to the Dome, and that's not something I haven't looked up the history, but for both of those schools, it might be one of their best, if not the best seasons they've ever had. And then Cedar Rapids, Washington, and Fort Dodge, I mean, both those teams have been in the big school playoffs in the not so distant past, and now get a chance here in 4A and have to go on the road to what have been smaller schools. It's just kind of an interesting matchups and games we haven't seen before in the playoffs.
Yeah, for sure. I got to give props to Clear Creek, Amana. Tough first round game, obviously, against Winterset 7-2. But the Clippers finished 6-3, guys. 4 of the 6 wins were by 1 point. And of course, the regular season finale last week, fit that script. A 1-point win over Newton, which got the Clippers, second in a district that Xavier won. 3-way tiebreaker that Pella ended up the odd team out. But man, it's amazing to me that you win 6 games and 4 of them are by 1 point. But CCA found a way, right?
That was crazy because when Cedar Rapids, Washington, when that game went final, I thought I'd seen this Clear Creek Amana was up by like 2 or 3 touchdowns against Newton. So I was just like, oh, okay, 3-way tie. And then I see the final score was 49-48. And it's like,
Yeah.
oh, of course, Clear Creek Amana, they've always got to make it interesting. I can't imagine being like a fan or a parent of that team this year and how stressful that must have been in all those games. But that's a good sign going into the postseason, I guess. They can win close games.
For sure. Hey, Coach Hattie, you wanted to get into the head coaching stuff. So, here you go, right? Your first year and your boys are putting you through the emotional ringer. So
Yeah, that'll turn your hair gray really quick.
Yeah, for sure.
But can we just talk about the span of before we came on air? Nathan and I were talking about some of the pairings in 8-player, but just with the prospects of Winterset traveling to North Scott, or even the far out chance that Decorah heads to Winterset for a second round game. How crazy is that? Thinking about just kind of the travel there. Not something you had normally seen in the past, but that just seems to be a pod kind of representing 3 different regions of the state.
I don't mind that, trying to match up teams, according to RPI,
I don't mind it either. It's just weird.
No, you're right. You're right. I understand what you're saying. For sure. Let's go to Class 3A. Let's go through the 4 pods here. We'll start with Pod 1, which is a Northwest Iowa centric pod. Sioux Center 5-4 at Boyden Hole Rock Valley 9-0. Algona 5-4 at Sergeant Bluff Luton 7-2. Then Pod 2 sees Hampton Dumont Cal 5-4 at Humboldt 9-0. And then a big one at Benton Community is Independence and Benton Community. Both teams are 8-1. That's might be your best first round matchup in any class in this whole thing. Pod 3 sees Huxley Ballard 5-4 at Harlan 9-0, and ADM Adel DeSoto Menburn 7-2 at Nevada 8-1. Pod 4 is Grinnell 6-3 at West Delaware 8-1, and Davenport Assumption 6-3 at Solon 9-0. Which pod catches your eye here, guys? Your top teams are RPI wise again are BHRV, Humboldt, Harlan, and West Delaware.
I am going to talk about Pod 4, and not because Grinnell is in it, but because West Delaware and Solon both being ranked number 3 and possibly having to meet in the quarterfinals would be one of the games of the week for sure. I mean, you could say that about like any quarterfinal game, but West Delaware and Solon could be a semifinal game easily, and so that would be I'd be really interested to see what happens there. But Davenport Assumption, I mean, that's been a team that's been ranked in the top 10 for a lot of the years, so that's not going to be an easy first game for Solon by any means. And I mean, Grinnell, they were ahead against Solon in the first half, beat Benton Community, so West Delaware can't take it easy there either. But yeah, I love that possibility of West Delaware and Solon meeting up in the quarterfinals. A lot of orange and black in this pod too.
That's right. 3 of the 4. KJ, you've seen both Indy and Benton, right?
Yeah. And that stands out as just to echo what you said. I think this is not only in Class 3A, but maybe in just about every class. This is one of the marquee matchups, and I think you've got two really strong teams that have the potential to be semifinalists. Nathan mentioned Benton's only loss came to Grinnell, I think in the opener this season. So they rifled off 8 straight wins. Independence, their only loss came to West Delaware, and that was a game that Independence for 2.5, maybe 2 and almost 3 quarters had West Delaware on their heels, and West Delaware just kind of pulled away late. But you're going to see some really good running backs here and good offensive lines. Marcus Beatty for Independence and Jacob Brecht for Benton Community. It might come down to quarterback play. To be honest with you, you got Colin Book for Benton, Mitchell Johnson for Independence. So I think this is a game that could go down to the wire. And for some reason, I was really surprised that Humboldt ended up being number 2 in the RPI when it was all said and done. But I think everything revolves around that Indy Benton community game to determine a semifinalist, really.
The other 4 classes here, starting with Class 2A, there were no RPI ratings. This was it is again in the pod system, but I guess I'm not quite sure how they determine who to group, other than looks like it's probably fairly heavily weighed as far as geography. When you look at least in 2A, you've got Pod 1 is a Northwest Iowa pod for the most part. Spirit Lake 7-2 at West Lyon 7-2, Clear Lake 6-3 at Central Lyon, Georgia Little Rock 6-3. Then you've got Pod 2 is Iowa Falls Alden 6-3 at Southeast Valley 8-1, OABC IG 8-1 at Greene County 8-1. Pod 3 is more of a Central Iowa sort of top pod with PCM 5-4 at Williamsburg 6-3, Mid Prairie 6-3 at West Marshall 8-1, and then Pod 4 is Comanche 6-3 at Waukon 8-1, and then North Fayette Valley 8-1 at Monticello 7-2. I didn't realize this until just kind of looking at it right now. We have 2 defending state champions in 2A, right? OABC IG and Waukon. But what do you think, I guess, of the pods here? Pick a pod and go with it.
Well, one of the things that kind of stands out there in pod 1, or actually I'll go to pod 2. Just the fact that Southeast Valley and OABCIG are in the same pod there. Those are 2 teams that I think we've had at number 1. Each held the number 1 spot in our rankings at some time this year. Obviously they have to get through Iowa Falls, Alden, and Greene County was also 8-1. But I think that's something where if Southeast Valley and Odeboll Arthur get through like they should, that's a possible championship caliber game there just for a spot to the Dome. And you mentioned OABCIG being a defending state champ. So Pod 2 has maybe 2 of the 2 teams that are title contenders. I'll let somebody else tackle Pod 1.
Yeah, Pod 1 is just crazy. I mean, and Linder has been talking about it all year, those Northwest Iowa teams, and Southeast Valley and OABCIG play a part in that too. But you've got number 5, 6, and 8 in our poll in that pod, with Spirit Lake going on the road to West Lyon, and then Central Lyon hosting Clear Lake. Could be looking at a Central Lyon West Lyon quarterfinal game, I think, for the second year in a row. Central Lyon beat West Lyon twice last year, and then was our number 1 preseason team. West Lyon beat them in the regular season, and now they could meet again. But Spirit Lake has been a team that has been really good, knocked off Southeast Valley in the last week of the regular season. So any number of those teams could not only make the semifinals, but win it all. And that's not to disrespect any of the Eastern Iowa teams, because they're in the mix too. But it's just crazy how deep it is in Western Iowa in 2A.
Could this be a contender for Group of Death?
Definitely.
I think 3. Let's see. I think most when we did the 4 downs this week, that three of the four of us, I think, picked that, right?
I think so.
So yeah. Let's go to Class 1A again. It's all pods the rest of the way, so I won't even bring that up. Again, no RPI. We've got Pod 1, Western Christian 4-5 at Underwood 9-0, Ridgeview 6-3 at West Sioux 8-1. Pod 2 is Adair Casey Guthrie Center 8-1 at South Central Calhoun 8-1. Woodward Granger 6-3 at Van Meter 9-0. Then Pod 3, Pella Christian 8-1 at Dyke New Hartford 9-0. Waterloo Columbus 7-2 at Sigourney Keota 9-0. Pod 4 sees West Branch 7-2 at Dyersville Beckman 9-0. And MFL Marmac 7-2 at Iowa City Regina 9-0. What I see here, guys, is a lot of 9-0 teams, and four of them could meet in the round of 8, right?
Exactly. You look at those bottom two pods. I think Pod 2, Van Meter. I think everybody thinks that's a heavy favorite, not just to come out of the pod, but just to keep things rolling and a heavy favorite to win it all. But Pod 4, West Branch and Beckman, MFL Marmac and Regina. I think those are two really good games. Did Beckman and West Branch meet up earlier in the season, or am I thinking of somebody else maybe?
I'll effort that. I don't remember that, but I can't.
I might have it. I might have it confused with Columbus. Columbus and West Branch instead, for some reason. But however you shake it out, these are four really, really good teams. These are teams with a lot of experience. But Beckman and Regina, those two meeting up possibly in the quarterfinals, could be a really exciting game. And we talked about it on fourth down. Regina 20 wins in a row. They're going to have their hands full to continue that streak.
Yeah, it was KJ. Waterloo Columbus and West Branch met in the second week of the regular season. Okay. So, Nathan, what do you think?
I love Pod 3. Two 9-0 teams again, Dyke New Hartford, Sigourney Keota, and then teams that played them pretty close in the regular season with Columbus and Pella Christian. And then that meeting of Sigourney Keota and Columbus is a rematch of a quarterfinal game last year that was a classic, 35-32 Sigourney Keota winning. So I'm sure with playing that old school offense, that was a great story last year. It could be this year as well. I'm sure Columbus was really thrilled to see that draw pop up again of getting to go down to Sigourney. But yeah, that's an exciting matchup. And Pella Christian has been a really good team all year, played Sigourney Keota close, and Dyke New Hartford obviously has been a power for a while, but that's a team that we didn't have ranked at the start of the year just because of how much they lost, but have gone on and gone 9-0 and beat Columbus. And that's a team that's looking to get to the Dome, and that could be some really exciting games in Pod 3.
Class 2A has no undefeated teams. Class 1A has 6 undefeated teams here in the round of 16. So pretty amazing stuff there. Let's go to Class A. Pod 1C, South O'Brien 7-2 at West Hancock 9-0, and North Butler 8-1 at Hartley Melvin Sanborn 7-2. Man, that's got to be a trip. That's a long trip. I'm going to have to MapQuest that one. Pod 2, Southwest Valley 7-2 at Woodbury Central 8-1. Logan Magnolia 8-1 at Mount Ayr 7-2. Pod 3 is Earlham 6-3 at Grundy Center 8-1. North Tama 7-2 at Linville Sully 8-1. Then Pod 4, which has a lot of geographic significance our way, sees Wapsie Valley 7-2 at North Lynn 9-0 and East Buchanan 8-1 at Lisbon 8-1. I like that pod, those 4 teams, guys. boy, it'd be something to see an all North or an all Lynn County, matchup here in the round of 8, right?
This actually was my pick for the group of gold. These are 4 teams that 3 of them are ranked in our top 10. North Lynn is 3rd, Lisbon 4th, East Buck, who really just trampled Mason City Newman in the second half in the first round, is ranked 7th. I had Wapsie Valley in my final poll, even though they didn't crack our top 10 overall. But Wapsie Valley, they have 6 straight wins, and their only losses are to Grundy Center and Denver. So, this is a team that has beaten, North Tama when North Tama was riding pretty high. They're coming off a big win against Albernet, 28-6. This is one where you might play these games each week and have kind of different outcomes of what teams come out. But Northland's defense has been exceptional this year. They only give up like an average of 4 points a game, which is phenomenal. So you got to like Northland's defense, and of course East Buck's rush attack. Got to see that firsthand. They have some a lot more diverse and tricky runs, even though it's still run heavy. Very few passes. I think one of the administrators joked, "What's the over/under of passes?" Like 3.5 for the game, and I think they threw 3. So, these are 4 teams that you could shake them up every week, and you might have a different one come out on top. But it'll be fun to watch this group in Pod 4.
Nathan, any thoughts on any of the pods?
I just want to shout out the Western Iowa teams for making it impossible to rank Class A this year. I mean, Woodbury Central and Logan Magnolia. Woodbury Central beats Logan Magnolia, then loses to Tri-Center. So then you have to figure out where to put Woodbury Central, but still rank Logan Magnolia pretty high. And then you got Southwest Valley that won 3 games that were like almost identical. They beat AHSTW 14-12. 15-13 over Earlham, and 15-12 over Riverside. So then you're like, okay, I think Southwest Valley could be in here. And then they go out and lose to Mount Air 41-33. And now those 4 teams are in the same pod. So that's going to be a fist fight between those 4 teams. I would give slight edge, I think, to Woodbury Central, but I think Logan Magnolia, even going on the road twice, that's a team that's really dangerous. So that I'm excited to see what happens there, and just thankful I don't have to rank them anymore. They're going to decide it on the field.
That's right.
Thankful you are not on the bus. I did just MapQuest. North Butler and Hartley Melvin Sanborn are exactly 3 hours apart. So that is quite a trip.
Yep.
That North
exactly
Butler.
2 Adam Sandler movies to watch on the charter.
There you go. Let's move down to 8-player, our final class here, where Pod 1 sees Kingsley Pearson 5-0 at Remsen St. Mary's 9-0. And then speaking of travel, Grettinger, Terrell, Ruthven, Ayrshire 8-1. At Don Bosco 7-2. Again, I'll effort the exact mileage on that here in a second. Pod 2 is English Valley 7-1 at Easton Valley 9-0. Lansing Key 8-1 at Turkey Valley 9-0. That'll be a rematch of a good regular season game, late regular season game. Pod 3 is Waco 9-0 at Martinsdale St. Mary's 7-2. Audubon 8-1 at Montezuma 10-0. And then Pod 4 is Fremont Mill 6-3 at Cam, Cumberland, Anita, Messina 9-0. Newell Fonda 8-1 at Lennox 9-0. Guys, Montezuma survived in the first round. A 2-point win. And that's our number 2 ranked team. And as a result, the reward for Montezuma is to play 5th ranked Audubon right away here in the round of 16. How about that?
And Audubon's only loss is to Cam, the top ranked team. And I think I've still been voting Audubon either number 2 or number 3, just because they were so highly ranked to start the season and have that loss to Cam in a game that they were right in the second half. So yeah, Montezuma, I think everybody, neutral fans are hoping to get Montezuma back in the dome so you can watch the Eddie Burgess show again. But pod 3 is such a tough draw there with Waco looming there. If they can get past Martinsdale, St. Mary's too. So Audubon and Montezuma would have felt like, oh man, that's going to be a tough quarterfinal game, let alone round of 16. So that's probably the game to watch there.
What do you think, AJ?
I'm kind of interested to see how pod 2 shakes out, because I think we've seen what Easton Valley, they had a good season last year, and I think that came to an end against Montezuma. And they came right out of the gate and been impressive all year long. Turkey Valley kind of surprised me a little bit, being 9-0, and so did Lansing Key. Is I think one of you guys mentioned the regular season game between the two. Again, I got that mixed up with somebody else here.
There's too many valleys.
Yeah, right.
There is.
Was it Easton Valley and Lansing Key? But anyway, Lansing Key has had a fantastic season. And it was 51-46 between Easton Valley and Lansing Key. So Lansing Key has put together a pretty strong campaign as well. And then you got English Valley's in there that won their first playoff game in 21 seasons or something like that, JJ. And
yeah,
their reward is to get Easton Valley here in the round of 16. So I think that's that could be a fun pod to watch. Specifically with that Lansing Key Turkey Valley matchup, and then possibly Easton Valley for a trip at the Dome stake.
Geographically here, Montezuma Audubon, that's about 2 hours and 10 minutes. So that's a hefty drive, but nothing compared to Grettinger, Terrell, Ruthven, Ayrshire, Don Bosco, 3 hours and 11 minutes. So,
wow.
It's kind of one of those deals where, all right, one of you teams from Eastern Iowa has got to go out west or be in a Western pod. And it just turned out to be Don Bosco. And when you look at it, GTRA is 8-1. And then Remsen St. Mary's is looming. Should Don Bosco win this game at 9-0. So it's going to be a tough go for the Dons, who obviously have been a perennial power. Lost the first 2 games, right, guys? Don Bosco, and then went on a roll and has won 7 in a row. So
to make matters worse with the Grettinger Terrell travel just last week, Nathan, didn't you mention that they were at Gladbrook Rhinebeck? So back-to-back weeks they're going to Gladbrook Rhinebeck and Don Bosco here in the postseason. So they're putting a lot of mileage on the bus's tires there. And with Don Bosco, they lost their first two games. The first one, they got kind of blasted by Easton Valley, and then lost a closer one to Turkey Valley. Both of those teams are undefeated, and kind of wrote them off, to be honest with you. I thought, oh well, maybe this is going to be a down year. And all they've done is just rattled off 7 straight victories, including a forfeit in there. But it's going to be interesting to see how that first round plays out, and if we get a Don Bosco Remsen St. Mary quarterfinal.
Need to point out all these games start at 7:00 on Friday night. So beware, there is no game, sub-varsity game to worry about in any of these. So they will start at 7:00 right on the dot, which is good for everybody, I guess. Especially for GTRA, which has to drive 3 hours back. Maybe they can use the IHSAA charter jet. You think that IHSA would let them use the charter jet for that long trip?
They have one of those? I bet they do.
That's just rumor. Rumor has it.
A little picture of Bernie Sagal painted on the side.
I think you have to wait till your district reaches 5 or 6 towns before you get that. They might have to pull in like Emmitsburg or somebody into the acronym.
There you go.
Mallard's right next, pretty next door. So
there you go.
Just throw Mallard in there. That'd be 5. That'd be a 5-town district. So
there you go.
All right, guys. Any closing thoughts? Other than this is fun, man. This is the best time of year for me. Round of 16, we've got some great games. We've got some great potential matchups. Any closing thoughts from either of you?
No, I just think this is I think this might be one of the most competitive postseasons that we see that we've seen in a while. Both of you guys have mentioned just how deep a couple of the classes are. I think we're going to have a lot of fun games, and even though the first round didn't produce any, I think we might have some surprises here coming up in the next couple of weeks, just because of that competitive field. And just to let everybody know, I'll be at Dubuque Senior and in Kennedy at Kingston Stadium on Friday. I'll have a feature on, of all things, a fullback. Colin Flanagan from Cedar Rapids, Kennedy, kind of all guts, no glory guy that does all the dirty work for the Cougars offensively. And look for that at Gazette.com.
Nathan, you got any final thoughts?
No, I mean, same as KJ. I think it's just exciting how competitive this is going to be. We talked about 5A and just the number of championship contenders. And in the past, you could maybe point to just a couple, but it's not even just in the rounds in the future. It's in this round too. It's going to be so competitive. I mean, there'd be games in the past where you're thinking the first round game is going to be 56-0. But now you've got our number 1 ranked team is playing a team that in the regular season was a 28-21 game. So it's just going to be exciting to follow every single week.
Are you going to be able to get out of the office and head out to a game local, Nathan?
I think I'm going to be going to Lisbon and East Buchanan with both those teams being ranked, and I haven't seen either one this year. Guaranteed an area winner for the highlights, so that I think that's what I'm leaning toward Friday.
Very nice.
That's a good pick. Good pick.
Nathan's done such a great job all year. Thank you for all your work on Friday night.
Very much so.
Friday, our version of Friday Night Lights, I guess. You've done a great job. So I'm trying to think where I'm going to be at tomorrow night. Iowa City High, Urbandale and City High for that big matchup. Linder, you know where Linder's going to be? Well, I'm thinking of it here, guys.
State cross country.
Oh, that's right. He's taking the easy way out. He's got 2 days to take cross country. So, but I know we've got reporters all around, town and the area here this week. So,
speaking of Linder, for people that are viewing, even though it's not football related, he has a feature on a cross country runner from North Lynn, the Wheatley girl there. It's a phenomenal story, and make sure you give that a read. IoPreps.com.
Yes, agreed. The Wheatley family is synonymous with North Lynn athletics up there, Brian. the father of this girl is the girls basketball coach there, and Ben is a tremendous all around athlete and including a tremendous boys basketball player for a great Lynx boys basketball program. So yeah, make sure you read that on iowaprepsports.com. We will have a running scoreboard. We'll have people all over the place. We'll get you photos. We'll get you the Green Gazette. Don't forget about that, of course, on Friday night. Boys, let's go. I'm ready right now. We got rain out here right now, which would mean mutters. Let's go. Let's go. Thanks for your time, gentlemen. Thank you for watching us, folks, for another edition of the Iowa Prep Huddle podcast. Say that 5 times fast. We will talk at you before the round of 8 next week. Thanks, everybody. Enjoy the games. And
go Kraken. And keep your head on a swivel.